OPEC is on tap, everyone. Garrett, let's kick things off with a look into that. For those
Sure.
who don't know, what is OPEC Plus,
What
especially the
is
plus?
OPEC Plus? Yeah. So
Yeah.
OPEC is the global oil cartel that was founded decades and decades ago, including Qatar, Libya, United Arab Emirates, Nigeria, Algeria, and they effectively control the supply of the global oil markets. Now they set prices by engaging in effectively cartel behavior, which is cooperative behavior in order to fix prices globally. Now, here in the United States, airlines can't all get together and say, we're going to charge X dollars per mile per route. But in the global energy markets, nobody cares. Effectively, what they do is they band together, they focus on setting caps or expanding production in order to either raise or reduce the price of oil. A lot of these countries are their energy sectors are either nationalized or there's a heavy state component, so they fund a lot of their government spending through oil markets. So you see OPEC, you look at the largest members, clearly Saudi Arabia. They have one of the large, they stand out as the kind of the voice of it. You have a lot of other players involved as well, like Iran and Iraq. And what they are effectively doing right now, if you remember, by cutting production, they are aiming to balance the supply and demand equation in the global oil markets. And they cut back in the first week of April in order to try to provide support for global oil prices.
When OPEC talks, oil usually moves,
Yes, it does.
especially in recent times. Yesterday, we got a stern warning for them from the upcoming OPEC Plus meeting on June 4th, when Saudi oil minister Prince said this: "Speculators, like in any market, they are there to stay. I keep advising that they will be ouching. They did ouch in April. I don't have to show my cards. I'm not a poker player, but I would just tell them, watch out." Okay. Okay. So what are you seeing between the lines here? What is he warning about?
Well, one, the term ouching, which I'd never seen before. We did a little bit of this in postcards. We ran that picture through Midjourney, and ouching was not what you think it is, Vaz. It turned out to be what this image came up as.
Okay, let's
This
see.
apparently, ouching is some sort of nautical loneliness surrounded by crows. But while all that's going on, what they're effectively stating is they're looking out at the global hedge fund market. They're looking at the commodity trading advisors, CTAs, who are out there, and this is the lowest sentiment for bullishness in terms of hedge funds in 10 years. So there was a significant amount of weakness at the end of the year last year. CTAs were not buying, so the speculative component of oil, and there is speculation in the global oil markets. It provides liquidity. It allows people to, effectively provide a little bit of a floor that they look at oil prices and say, look, this is getting too cheap. I want to hold it for a certain period of time. But the
Mhm.
short sellers have been taking aim at oil, and there was a significant amount of shorting back in March. Obviously, you saw that in the performance of oil stocks, where while the financial crisis was happening with the banks, energy prices were falling precipitously as well. And there was a significant amount of shorting, largely on the back of concerns around whether or not some of these oil trading groups, particularly in Europe, were going to be able to get access to funding in order to continue their operations. This still remains a concern. But people, as they start to pile on and short, as shorts were last week, they were getting smoked. Right now, you are starting to see shorts beginning to cover in this environment because they're effectively being called out by the single biggest driver of prices on the supply side in the globe. So this could hint that they are, if you were looking between the lines, this could hint that we are maybe looking at another cut from OPEC heading into June. We are also seeing United States producers shuttering rigs. And then the other thing we'll talk about in a moment, there's a lot of M&A in the U.S. oil patch, and a lot of that oil production here in the U.S. is not going to be turned on later this year. It's actually going to be shuttered because a lot of companies will just sit on those assets, control supply here in the U.S., and aim to try to find support for oil prices heading into 2024.
All right, so Garrett, you're saying there are still a lot of concerns. We have this meeting coming up at June 4th. What's the best way to trade around it?
So there's a complication right now in the global markets that really hasn't been discussed, and it did finally hit a little bit of on CNBC this morning, and that is that China's worried about another wave of a COVID outbreak, and it would potentially hit at the peak sometime in mid-June, which coincides, unfortunately, with quad witching and a lot of expiration for a lot of
Okay.
contracts in the energy markets. So what this does now is it changes the line, because as we talked about from the OPEC perspective of supply, there are two massive consumers for energy. The first is the United States post Memorial Day, which is obviously coming up next week during the driving season. But the second is Chinese demand. And a lot of people have been focusing on oil, trying to find support because of Chinese demand moving forward. So at the moment, we had, we haven't mentioned momentum in a while. Momentum was positive last week. Russell 2000 went positive last Tuesday. S&P 500 late Thursday. Momentum for the S&P 500 went negative yesterday for a very short period of time and finished the day yellow. That has me concerned that we might see a little bit of a short squeeze on oil prices for the next few days. And if the market rolls over because of the debt ceiling, or this becomes a sell the news type of event, energy can turn right back around and move lower. So if that is the case, there are positions that I have on stocks that I want to own at lower levels. We've talked about Occidental time and time again, buying down around that 57 to 57.50 level. But once again, I think the best way is to take a little bit more of a long-term focus. And this is what we're doing over at Flashpoint Trader. We're focusing on M&A in the Permian patch, because even if oil prices pull back, the target companies that are being acquired here in the United States in the Permian by those bigger players like Chevron and Exxon, they are focusing on reducing their production costs. So in the Permian, where oil production could be anywhere from 25 to 35, that's where these companies want to be for the foreseeable future due to economic concerns globally. And they're getting away from their wells that are costing 45, 50, even higher, because they can focus on expanding their margins, reducing their production costs, and being content to sell oil in a $65 to $75 range, rather than what Goldman Sachs has talked about up at the $95 level. Anything above 75 is gravy for these producers at this point. So jump over to Flashpoint. We're going to continue to focus on those names moving forward. And I think you're going to see more M&A activity if oil does pull back because of a wave of COVID in China.
All right, guys. So there's more to this oil story. Garrett's seeing specific companies in the M&A range as well to trade. You can trade those over in Flashpoint. But Garrett, you did just mention two of them. Can you repeat them one more time?
So those are just bigger names. I'm when momentum goes positive, I'm typically bullish on Apache, and Apache has done very, very well in the last couple of days. But now I would potentially look to short Apache if energy momentum goes negative. Occidental, which is the company that Warren Buffett has repeatedly bought at the 57.50 level, I like to sell puts or put spreads lower than that, go down to 55, 52.50 in the July range. And then the other thing is to look at, I forgot what the other company was, Foz. So you tell me.
All right. Well, you know what? How about you tell us in Flashpoint? There you go.
I will.